The Sound Off Podcast. The podcast about broadcast with Matt Kundle. Starts now.
This week I'm speaking with Sylvia Alvarado from KOMP KOMP 92.3 in Vegas. She does the midday show from 10 to 3. She's largely Vegas raised outside of the first 11 months of her life, which were spent in Santa Monica. To get ready for this episode, we log into Squadcast. We set up the cameras to see one another. And our first minute chatting is an audio HR incident.
Thank you for having me. I actually was pretty nervous leading up to this interview because usually I'm the one interviewing.
It's going to feel a little bit different, I guess, in this sense. So,
oh, for sure. Are the boobies distracting? My apologies.
The what?
The boobies. Can you see them?
Yeah, come to think of it, now that you point them out, there are, yes. So what you can't see in this podcast is the Retro 2000 marketing poster in the top corner above Sylvia's head. It's featuring predominant undercleavage. That form of rock station marketing hasn't completely disappeared from the radio landscape, but indeed it was a different era. I put a picture of the poster, by the way, up on the webpage at soundoffpodcast.com. Sylvia Alvarado joins me from the KOMP studios at Lotus Broadcasting in Las Vegas, where it turns out Sylvia once wanted to become a nun.
First off, I wanted to be a nun. And I think, based on the look on your face, it seems random. But yeah, I was about 7 or 8. And we had to do like this activity where it's like, draw what you wanted to be when you grow up. And I said I wanted to be a nun. I don't know why. I think it's because of the Catholic upbringing and because I was at a Catholic elementary school. But yeah, anytime when somebody asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I wanted to be a nun. That didn't work out.
Is your pathway into media sort of your way of rebelling and you're still going through the rebellion phase?
No, I just think I don't think I was cut out for it. I say too much bad words. I got dirty jokes. I think rock radio was kind of like my calling. But even then, afterward, like I wanted to be a singer. So like I'm such a shy, introverted person that radio and just public speaking never seemed to be something that I thought I would see myself in. Even when I interned here, I never saw myself on air because I was like, there's no way that it could happen.
Do you consider yourself some sort of introvert, extrovert where you live both lives?
I think so. And I think that actually exists where it's like you have extrovert qualities, but you're really an introvert. When I'm around a lot of people, I get super exhausted. So like I need to like recharge my batteries a little bit afterward. But I think it's also functioning introversion or something. I don't know.
How many journalism and media degrees do you have?
I have an associate's degree in journalism media studies and a bachelor's.
So that's like 2.
That's like 2. And then I have like a honor society. And I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was like Alpha Cum something. So there's that. So
you knew you were going to go into media in some capacity, but what were you thinking while you were studying for these degrees?
Well, first I went into college for psychology, realized I don't think I want to be a doctor. And then I changed my major to music, realized I don't think I want to be a teacher. And then this is kind of where my mom plays in, where she's like, you love to write, you should go into journalism. And I went into it and I really liked it. But then we had to take an internship. And I was like, well, I don't want to go into TV. I want to be into a place where music is involved because I love music. And how cool would it be to just be surrounded by music all the time? So that's kind of how I got into radio.
What sort of music did you grow up around?
Well, I'm a millennial. So the Britney Spears, the NSYNCs, Backstreet Boys and all that. But when I was about 10, 11, my brother introduced me to Korn. So he had me listen to a song called Twist. And I don't know if you or anyone out there is familiar with the song Twist, but it's basically the singer scatting and it's very like chaotic. And I think it was meant to like scare me, but it got me so excited for some reason. I was like, oh, this is freaking cool. And then from there, it was Korn, it went into Alice in Chains, it went into Nirvana, it went into Metallica. So yeah, I kind of left Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera kind of in the dust.
That was a great time in the 90s. That was a lot of fantastic rock bands. So what was your first rock concert?
My Chemical Romance. I was 16 and I got caught in, and it was my first concert and my first mosh pit. And as a 16-year-old, that was not fun for me because I kind of didn't expect it. And I remember Gerard Way saying, make that mosh pit make it as big as the hole in my effing heart. And I'm like, oh no. And so everybody just like rushed to the stage and made this big mosh pit. I was like, oh my God.
When was the first time you set foot into a radio station and what did you do?
That was back in winter of 2009, and I was an intern. So I basically just had to file a lot of papers. And because, again, going back into being an introvert, I was a little bit scared to work on my breaks. So the internship coordinator at the time, who also later became a mentor, my best friend, he was always like, you need to do your breaks. You need to work on your voice. And that was the biggest thing he always wanted me to do was develop your voice, develop who you want to be on air. But I mostly stayed in filing and helping out in promotions. But eventually one day I was just like, okay, I'm going to start working on my breaks. And that was tough. It sucks hearing your voice for the first time.
So that's amazing because you admit that you're an introvert, you're filing. You've already mentioned, I didn't imagine that I would ever be on the air doing what I do. So when's that moment when you find your voice?
It happened probably where I was content with it, probably 2 years into my radio career. But I kind of just was like, I'm open with my friends, like pretend that you're talking to a friend on air, you know? And that's kind of how you start to develop and you listen to other jocks and you kind of like take pieces and like kind of make it your own. So I think when I was really, really happy with it was about 2 years in.
And was it confidence more than anything? Or had you just done it, killed it, and you knew you were in?
No, I think it was confidence. I mean, to be perfectly honest, it was definitely confidence because, again, I just thought that, well, I don't think I sound good. I don't think I sound, I was always in my head a lot. So there was one day where I was just like, I'm tired of feeling like I'm shy on the mic. I'm tired of feeling like, hiding who I am. So it just came to a point where I was like, no, I'm talking to my friends. I'm always open with my friends. I'm very sarcastic and I have dark humor and I love this music and I want to share with the audience that I love this music with them. So yeah, I gained that confidence.
And you've been on the air in Spanish too.
Yeah, for like a hot minute. And actually it turned out to be like 2 years, but I was doing KOMP on weekends. And then I was on air on La Buena for about 2 years and I did like a 1 hour, 2 hour show. And it was like a countdown. And that was actually really tough for me. And that was kind of going all the way back of like finding my voice because at the time my Spanish wasn't great. Like I spoke Spanish, but you could still hear an accent and a lot of people could hear that. And anytime when I had to, and I wrote out all my breaks because I just didn't have the confidence in myself to like go and talk like I'm talking right now. So I write out all my breaks, but I always had like a little bit of trouble reading some words. So I stumbled a lot. And luckily, the audience was pretty forgiving. Like they could understand that I was a Mexican American, but mostly spoke English. So I had a lot of calls saying like, oh, they would call me Pocha, which is basically a Mexican American. They're like, oh, Pocha, Pochita, you're doing good. You're out there. We understand. And I'm like, that's really nice, but I don't know if this is good for me.
So I'm from Montreal, where we have English and French radio, French being the predominant language in that city. You're doing English radio, and where English is obviously predominant. But how are the two markets different between Spanish radio and English radio? And we'll speak specifically to where you are in Vegas.
The main thing that I've seen, and this is just from our Spanish station, is the Mexican audience or the Latino audience just seems to be like super passionate about radio and about the promotions and about the jocks. And I'm not saying that, the KOMP listeners or, the English audience, they don't have that same passion, but it's just there's a difference. There's just more enthusiasm or passion, or they're just more connected, I guess.
Community.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you started doing some filing back in 2009. You're on the air doing some middays. And in the in-between time, you've probably done every job in radio to date that has to do with being on the air. Because I know you've done some promotions as well. So tell me about your skill set. What's in the bag?
I can, if someone needs to cover the front desk, I'm that girl. If, our promotions guy who does the other stations, if he's out, I'm in. I think I've covered our sister station 3 times in my career. So our classic rock station, I've been there. So I think that's about it. I'm pretty sure there's more. Oh, I can upload stuff on the website. I do social media.
All right. So you do middays. And all we hear about radio in today's day and age is just how busy everybody is. So give everybody an idea about what your workday is like. When does it start? When does it end? And how much do you have to do?
It starts at 10. I'm here at the station from about 10 to 1, and then the rest is voice tracked. From 1 to about 4, sometimes 5, just depending on how busy the day is. I go into my office and I just work on promotions. If there's, proposals, if there's rules needed, if I need to put together some remote prize packs, that's pretty much it. Meetings, conference calls, all that sort of stuff. So scheduling for promotions, voice tracking for weekends, that sort of stuff. So
promotions in Vegas has got to be a daunting task because Las Vegas is just one big giant entertainment promotion as it is.
Oh, yeah. And especially with our professional teams that are here. So we have the Las Vegas Golden Knights, we have the Las Vegas Raiders, we have the Las Vegas Aces, we have our AAA baseball teams, we have, AAA football teams, hockey. So yeah, we're a busy, entertaining city.
So tell me about the arrival of both the Raiders and the Golden Knights. And I mentioned both, especially like the Golden Knights. I mean, Canadians know all about that because they look at their crappy hockey team from Edmonton or Vancouver or Winnipeg and will go, hey, let's go to Vegas for the weekend. Or you might be a Buffalo Bills fan and you say, hey, look, they're playing the Raiders and let's go there for the weekend. So how have those two teams and the arrival of professional sports in Vegas really changed the work that you do?
Well, it got busy. And when the Vegas hockey came here, I was at a different station. So Lotus Broadcasting is sort of like the flagship station for Vegas Golden Knights. So when all that happened, I wasn't in this building, but I remember hearing a lot of people saying a little bit of naysaying where they were like, oh, hockey's it's not going to be popular. It's not going to do well. There's not going to be any people at the games and all this stuff. But oh my God, I can't drive down the street without seeing like a Vegas Golden Knights flag or, the license plates. It grew, and there are fans, and they are hardcore fans out here.
How did everybody whiff on that? Because everybody's thinking, oh, there's too much to do in Vegas. That's never going to take off. And these are some of the more popular teams and some of the more popular events in Vegas.
Oh, yeah. And I think what happens is, and maybe this might not be the case, but it just seems like there's community around it because everybody is coming together and they are cheering on. And especially I think hockey has a special place in the Las Vegas community's heart because everything happened when 1 October happened. So it was a way for us to come together and root for something as a community. So I think that's kind of where it kind of like bumped up the popularity, in my opinion, is that it's kind of like what I saw. But maybe there are a lot of closet hockey fans as well. And then people, of course, are happy that there's a professional team in Las Vegas. We didn't think that it would ever happen. We've heard like rumors and everything like that, but it's finally here. And then you have on top of the Raiders, and that's football. Oh, my God.
What makes a great radio promotion? And what's maybe one of the more memorable ones that you've done?
I remember we used to we have what's called KOMP Bingo. So that's one of KOMP's biggest promotions where it's basically bingo, but it's rock and roll bingo. There are drinks, people are having a blast. There are great prizes. But we also had musical chairs. And this was like years when I was an intern. We had musical chairs. So people would play musical chairs for concert tickets. We had the KOMP Kegger, which was, a big party that we would throw. And we would invite, bands like Chevelle or Adelita's Way that I can remember, that sort of stuff. When I was over on La Buena, we had like a little pageant for girls who were turning 15. For me, that was a memorable promotion because it was basically like girls wanting to have like the 15th birthday of their lifetime. And that was cool that we were able to make it happen for one lucky girl.
What does a visitor to Las Vegas not know about living and working in Las Vegas?
I think people have this perception that we're always on the strip and we're always partying, and that's not true. And I think just in general, people have we live in casinos. Like I don't really go to the strip all that much unless it's for a concert, unless it's for, if a friend is in town. But, we have our national park, Red Rock. We have our arts district. It's a lot more than just casinos and gambling and everything. It's a community. It's a little bit more artsy than people like to give it credit for. And we don't live in casinos. We live far away from them.
Have you ever played a casino game in Vegas?
Yes. And I didn't understand it. And I lost money. And I was like, this sucks. It was like a slot machine. And I was like, and someone was like trying to show me. He's like, okay, you just press this button. You just press this button. I'm like, I lost $10. This doesn't seem like it's my game.
So do you look at the Strip as being some sort of freak show the way I looked at the Strip when I went there?
Well, how did you see it?
A lot of visitors doing a lot of weird stuff. People passed out in their breakfast. There was a woman who passed out at the casino table while hitting on my wife. This all happened in 3 days.
I think what happens is it's people who can't handle Vegas. A lot of amateurs. I've seen this meme where it's like, oh, Vegas, like guys going into Vegas and they're like, yeah, let's go to Vegas. And then like 2 days later, they're just like destroyed. They just can't handle Vegas. And this is a bunch of amateurs.
KOMP 92.3, the rock station.
In just a moment, we're going to talk about social media strategies, the perils of singing the national anthem while the TV cameras are rolling, and that era of marketing with the KOMP girls, the calendars, and the tattoos. Yeah, we'll find out what they're doing these days. There's more with Sylvia, including some of those performances and a transcription of this episode on our website at soundoffpodcast.com.
Transcription for the Sound Off podcast is powered by Podin. Your podcast is an SEO goldmine. We help you to dig out. Start your free trial now at podin.io.
The Sound Off Podcast.
So tell me about 1998, Sylvia. You're into Korn, you're listening to Twist, and then you're going to take this time machine and you're going to move into 2022, and you're going to look at rock radio today. And what do you think your observations would be?
As far as like...
I can't believe we're still playing Korn.
We are playing Korn. We just played Korn today.
Did you play Got the Life?
Yeah. Got the Life. We played Freak on a Leash. We got the new one because they have a new album out. So, I mean, I would be very excited as like a 9-year-old Sylvia saying like, oh, great. Got the Life is still being played. Freak on a Leash is still being played. Oh, they have new music. But it's like with Metallica, like, I don't think that's ever going to go out of style. Like, we play Limp Bizkit, like, sprinkled in. So I think those bands and those songs, they're really not going to go out of style because a lot of people like to listen to songs that they, used to rock out to years ago when they were younger. I think that's why it seems like there's a resurgence kind of going along with the late 90s, early 2000s coming back. I think that's getting a lot of popularity again.
So what's the strategy for new music? Like, how much would you play in an hour? And you're going to add the record to the playlist, but how are you going to take it upon yourselves to get this new artist and new song out to your listeners?
Well, what I've noticed is that it kind of creeps in. So it starts, at nights, and then it kind of creeps into the afternoon and then to middays. And I've noticed that with new music, it's always a stop set before, or not stop set, but like a break before the new music. So you're able to get music news and talk about it for, however many seconds you have.
Is that 12 seconds or longer?
Depends on the song. Because normally like newer bands and newer songs that I've noticed, they're not like Metallica anymore, man. Like they don't give us a minute and 30-second intro. It's very like with Bad Flower, it's a 7-second intro. So as much as I try not to stop the playlist to talk, sometimes you have to because you only have like 5 to 7 seconds and you want to talk about a station promotion or you want to talk about the new song. You want to talk about the band if they're going to have a show, that sort of stuff. So,
which brings us really to sort of getting your listeners to connect to the artists, whether it's an older one or a newer one or a band that's heading out on tour. And then you're going to be tasked with interviewing the band. And so now how do you get the interview out? How would you look at your social media assets and how would you bust it all up to make sure that the interview got out there?
So what I would do is, aside from airing it, I would make a little video, put the interview and the artist photo. I'll post it on Instagram. I'll post it on our Facebook page. I've tried to post it on our web, and I'll tag the artist, I'll tag the venue. And that's kind of just what I've been doing as far as like trying to get, hey, this person has new music going on tour, that sort of stuff. Just get all the info out to the listeners.
I guess the pandemic has sort of made it that you have to do your interviews like the way we're doing our interview right now.
Yeah, and it's such a bummer, especially because, sometimes we may not have the luxury of doing a video interview. So you have to solely rely on the voice. And what I've tried to do was kind of talk to the person before I hit record, because, you only have 15 minutes, but you have to make it sound like, hey, we're buddies, but, we know each other. We're cool with each other. We're trying to create a chemistry out of talking for 15 seconds or 15 minutes, So that's been the tough thing that I've come across.
I think you're talking on a cell phone to me right now through your iPhone, so you're not going to be able to reach for this answer. But what rock stars do you have their text number right now in your contacts?
I had Ivan Moody's number for a second. Actually, it's more so on Instagram that I'm friends with, or I'll follow them, they'll follow me. We'll talk every once in a while. Very, very rarely, but yeah. But I remember Ivan Moody from Five Finger Death Punch. He was like, call me. I'm like, I'm 22, man. I'm so shy. Oh my God. And it's not to say anything he was being a creep or anything. I think he was just being a guy who, I don't know, wanted to talk more.
Well, it's lonely on the road. It
is.
Remember, this is a band that covered Bad Company.
I'm not afraid to say that I'm not mad at Five Finger Death Punch. They got some good songs.
I'm a fan. Okay, so this brings up the question, most memorable interview.
Oh my God. Well, memorable because this wasn't good. Memorable in the positive would be Slash. I've interviewed him twice. He's always been super nice. He's always been a sweetheart and very talkative and very chatty. Brent Smith of Shinedown. He was awesome. I had a 30-minute interview with him, which I didn't expect. Memorable in the sense that it was awful and doesn't leave my mind was Maynard. Maynard from Tool. He's a tough one, that guy.
Yeah, I think he puts out deliberately difficult and standoffish answers.
Oh, yeah. And I remember the one thing that I love about interviewing people, and this is why it was a little bit tough to kind of be on the other side. I love researching. I love reading about the artists that I'm going to interview. So I spent a good 2 days researching and trying to find everything that I could about Maynard. And the interview went like this, super quick. I went through my questions 2 seconds because he didn't really give me a whole lot. So that was probably the most memorable as far as it just was so crappy and never saw the light of day. I refuse.
Really?
I know. Because I'm really hard on myself too. So I'm oh, no one's going to hear this.
So was this for Tool or was this for a Perfect Circle or Pussifer?
This is for Pussifer. And I don't know if I should say that.
I mean, if you mention Tool during the Pussifer interview, you're going to get something odd.
Well, here's the thing. So when I did mention Tool, it was very quick. And then I was told, oh, he loves talking about his winery. And I didn't know that he had a restaurant in Arizona. And I was like, this is great. I could do this. We can talk about his stuff. And yeah, it just sounded very bored, very mad to be there.
But if you went back and started to talk about him being a farmer and growing grapes, do you think he would have had a different reaction?
No, I think that was in there too.
Oh.
I'm telling you. Because the PR lady was like, oh, he loves talking about, that's his favorite thing to talk about, his restaurant and his winery and, farming. And I remember looking at YouTube videos and there was one video, I don't know if anyone is familiar with this, but there's this little girl, I think it's Rockstar Interview Kids or whatever, something like that. It's these little girls interviewing musicians. And I remember he was still a little bit standoffish with the little girl. I'm like, oh my God, if he's standoffish and really short with his answers to a 8-year-old, what is he going to do to a 33-year-old? Oh my God.
And I have the same experience, by the way, with Brent Smith. He's the nicest guy and he stays as long as you'll have him. And it's incredible. And he shakes everyone's hand. He remembers everybody's name. I wish every rock star were like that. And I'm quite convinced that rock radio would be in a much better position if everybody did what he did, which is straight out of the country music, handbook.
Actually, yeah. I guess having access to the musicians, more access to artists.
Yeah. But thanking radio and being thankful for, radio and really putting out, the thanks and meeting the listeners. And not every rock band does that.
No, actually, no, it's very rare. I mean, Slash has done it. He's been super nice. Brandon Boyd, he was a sweetheart. I think if artists or musicians in the rock scene gave more of experience, I guess to say, I think it would be a lot more fun.
Yeah, well, when was the last time that a rock star thanked rock radio at the MTV Music Awards or anything like that?
I couldn't tell you.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. And also because I haven't seen a MTV Music Award show in a long time, nothing pops to mind. And I'm pretty sure there is one, and I can't think of that person right now because I'm pretty sure I've seen it. Probably Aaron Jones, probably, if you've ever heard of him. He's a Seattle musician. I think he's pretty good at that.
What do your listeners listen to when they're not listening to you?
More KOMP. More KOMP. We have some pretty dedicated listeners.
Yeah, I get the feeling there's not much where else to go on the dial for what you're offering.
There's another station, but I don't think it has and maybe this is throwing shade.
No, we've got the ratings. We have the ratings.
We do. But there's another radio station that I don't think has the locality. I think it's mostly all voice tracked. It's all satellite. Whereas with our station, we kind of pride ourselves in being local. You know, we have our morning show, BS in the Morning. We have myself and we have our afternoon show guy, Gooch. So, yeah, I think that's kind of what we can parade about. Like, we're local. We can talk about, you know, if something happened, you know, on the strip or if there's a concert, you know, we can kind of like celebrate or come together with the community. Like, we get each other, you know.
You're really good at Instagram, by the way.
Am I really?
Yeah, I think so.
Thanks.
So what is your social media strategy with your particular audience?
With me, I just try to post anything. Well, aside from, you know, radio stuff and the interviews, I just try to post things that are happy, that are dumb enough to make you laugh. I have this thing where like I will say really horrible dad jokes, but in a pumpkin filter, which is dumb, but it makes me laugh. And if it makes anybody else, you know, laugh or at least crack a smile, I've done my job. And that's kind of like what I've tried to have my Instagram. Mostly, it's just something that you can just look at and crack a smile and stuff. So
you were talking about how you were a singer and you talked about how it was such in your distant past and you don't do it anymore. But I know that that's not true.
No, I sing here and there. I sing mostly our national anthem.
You were at the Aviators game. Yeah, you sang the anthem. Tell me about that experience.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. So I've done the anthem, I want to say, for about 13 years for that organization. So it used to be Las Vegas 51s. And I was introduced back in 2009 to the person kind of in charge of that. So he's asked me to come sing maybe once a year, every single year. And every single year I am dying. I'm so nervous. I'm stress sweating because I get so nervous because I'm like, oh my God, this could be it. This could be the year that I forget the words. And that is my biggest fear. Not that I'll like mess up a note because I'm like, no, I'm pretty confident in that. It's the lyrics. Because the lyrics, everybody knows the lyrics to the national anthem in that arena, in that stadium. Everybody knows. I can't like do like another lyric, you know, to fill in. I can't do that because everybody knows. And like, that's one of my biggest fears. But after it's done, I'm on cloud 9 and I just want to do it again.
Yeah, well, you don't want to become a Sports Center highlight, but it's not the worst thing in the world, but it has happened.
I know. And that's my fear because this happened like years ago. But for some reason, I was like, well, it could be worse. Let me see how worse it can be. And so like I looked at how bad, like there was that one lady who was at a hockey game and she sang, but then messed up the lyrics, then went back, then came out, but she fell on the ice. And I'm like, oh my God.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, that's probably not what you want to see before you go out and sing the national anthem. That doesn't calm the nerves.
We have had Josie Dye from Indy 88 on the show, and she did sing the national anthem, and she did mess it up.
No,
And you know what? I'd completely forgotten about the incident, and she brought it up on this podcast, and I said, oh, that's right.
Oh my God, it's such a crummy feeling to just even like know that you could be forgetting it, which has happened to me. But then I don't. I think it's like muscle memory.
What is next level for you in the radio business? Like, it's such a dumb question, but where do you see yourself in 2 years?
Hopefully. And it's not a dumb question because like my goal when I first started was, okay, can I be on air? And I went on air like on weekends and I was like, okay, well, what's the next thing I can do? And so the opportunity presented itself to be on a morning show. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. I came back and I'm like, okay, well, I'm back on weekends, but what can I do? What opportunities are there? And then I did middays. So I think just for like the next 2 years, if I can just be on middays and be the best that I can possibly be as far as like maybe being a little bit better on my Instagram or putting out more content into my breaks, that sort of thing. Like, I think that's kind of where I see myself still being on middays, hopefully, because radio is a little bit, it can be challenging and it can be unpredictable. It can be unstable. So my goal is just to be here 2 years, middays, and be like the best personality that I can be.
I love that.
Now it's just evolving. So now I'm on middays, which I wanted to be on, weekdays. When I started to do weekends, I wanted to be on weekdays. So now I'm on weekdays. Well, how can I evolve from that, Did
the texture of your show change during the pandemic? Did middays evolve a little bit because people sort of changed their lives, especially Las Vegas? Like everything changed for people in Las Vegas. But did the texture of your show change where you had different listeners listening at different times, and was it noticeable to you?
I think because what I noticed, like when we first started going on air, when I first started middays, and that was like June 2020, I think, a lot of it was just trying to give news about the pandemic, but also still trying to be uplifting. And I think right now, the goal is to talk about stuff that is positive or funny or, informative. Maybe not so much of the heavier stuff because people have a lot around that anyway. I mean, you open up Facebook, you open up Twitter. Sadly, there's a shooting or there's monkeypox. So I think for me now, it's just trying to give content that'll kind of like take away the worries or the anxiety, So behind you is a marketing piece from the station's past. It features underboob. Yeah.
Is that still part of the plan for rock radio these days, or has rock radio moved on from that? Are we still doing that?
I mean, this was done. And just to paint a picture, like it's the underboobs. It has the KOMP logo. I think that started, I want to say early 2000s. So that's kind of really when rock radio was like the tattoos and the girls and the drink beer and super bro. I think we've kind of gotten away with it or away from it a little bit. I mean, it's still there. I still have posters from, I think, 2001 of like our KOMP rock girls. I mean, we don't have those anymore. And I think it just kind of like went away, or we kind of like grew away from it. It's still part of our past and we'll present it, obviously, because we're never going to let go. These are great boobs, but I don't think it's like the main thing. And we still have our, the strip club commercials and all that, which, by the way, I have voiced 2 strip club commercials. I don't think it's going to go away, but we could just kind of like, it's not as prominent.
I think rock radio's backed off it a little bit. I mean, you're talking about that era in the early 2000s when we're going to get a website up and on the website, what are we going to put? We're going to put up pictures of girls.
The hot girl of the day.
Yeah. And then at the end of the year, there's a calendar, and then there's the calendar launch party where you can come meet the girls. At one point, and maybe you still have them, you probably have the KOMP girls who are going to be out at the remotes.
Yep. I never got to see those days, unfortunately. By the time I came to intern, I think they had stopped that. I was like, man.
You missed it.
I missed it. I missed the glamour.
We had Bob Willett, and I ran into Bob Willett, who had a great quote on this podcast. And it was like, oh, you just started working here? You missed the best era of the radio station. All the good stuff has already happened.
Dang.
Sylvia, what did I miss?
I think you covered it. What did you miss from me?
Well, probably a station tour the next time I come to Vegas.
I would love to, because we have a brand new board too, so.
Great. I'd love to come see it.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was a blast.
The Sound Off Podcast is written and hosted by Matt Kundle. Produced by Evan Serminski. Social media by Courtney Krebsbach. Another great creation from the Sound Off Media Company. There's always more at soundoffpodcast.com.